Okay, we start the panel number 4, and it is I think, another interesting section, because we try to see in which way different religions can can contribute in the ethical discussion concerning these topics. So in which way to improve a dialogue among religion, science, and also other experts and philosophers, ethicists, concerning the question coming from the development of science and technology in concerning human life and all the aspects of that. So we have 4 speakers. We have the presentation of the 4 religious traditions, and after that we have a time for discussion, questions, comments, and so on. We start with Charles Davis. He comes from India, particularly Bangalore, but I know that also he's in Kashmir now. And he studies bioethics in Germany and with Professor Schockenhoff. And he can present the Christian Catholic tradition concerning the topics of our discussion. Please, Charles.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Renzo. I would also briefly go through these scientific aspects of genetic engineering, what our St. John's Medical College, Dr. Cecil Ross and the team, Dr. Sweta, Dr. Alok and others are doing research on genetics. I'd like to also thank them for their contribution. And this is their publication, what they have done, and all within the ethical parameters of the Catholic Church. This is a St. John's Medical College, belongs to the Catholic Church. And gene editing, whatever we have heard yesterday from the scientific aspects of it, and I do not want to repeat them. So the possibilities are there. And then we come to the place of playing God. Can you command the morning? Sanctity of human life is there from womb to tomb, and gene editing in embryos, destruction of human embryos is morally unacceptable. Inequality in access limited to the wealthy. So there is problem of inequity. Designer babies, embryonic modification is also not acceptable because there is also commodification of human life involved in this. And knockout cells to study mechanism of disease, determining the drug targets. So the basic idea I'll be focusing is whether we should play God. Before I go into the overview of the religions, my preliminary comments. Germline interventions which result in genetic alterations are direct attack on humanity. For the human genome is the heritage of humanity. New genetic designs and all forms of human enhancement pose a challenge to the identity, integrity and dignity of existing individuals as well as of the entire humanity, including future generations. Should we improve human nature? Are we allowed to do what we can do? And how are the potential consequences to be assessed? Whereas a therapy may be ethically justified, even if it involves invasive interactions and interventions at human nature, Enhancements are rejected by many religions because they imply a refusal to accept the natural qualities of the humankind, an attempt to create new types of natures which could be established as non-humans or superhumans. Genetic technologies may have positive elements to combat hereditary diseases and prolong life through transplantation of organs and prostheses, but they should not degenerate humans and abandon the idea of humanity. Religions do speak of inalienable natural human dignity, which makes humans equal and equals. Genetic modifications may harm the values of human dignity, justice, equality, and solidarity. The nature-given human dignity should be made unavailable for any manipulation, and humans should not be reduced to objects. Der Mensch entwickelt sich immer als Mensch, nicht zum Menschen und nicht zum Objekt. The human beings always develop as humans and never unto objects. The inviolable bioethical principle of human dignity plays a vital role in stopping manipulative human experience. Humans should not play God, but be humble stewards. The use of engineering human cells can be broadly classified as 1 for enhancement and 2 for therapy. CRISPR-based therapeutic trials are ongoing in several fields, including oncology and neurological diseases. PCSK9 type of cells of genes play a crucial role in cholesterol metabolism, and studies are being conducted to show that gene editing of PCSK9 can help in cholesterol lowering. To treat diseases, human cells are engineered using technologies or gene therapy, and resultantly effort is made to correct genetic disorders. This is generally considered ethically permissible if it improves health and alleviates suffering. Use of prosthetics, brain-controlled prosthetic limbs, cognitive enhancement using drugs for autistic children, stem cell therapy for arthritis is some example of use of human engineering or interference to improve quality of life. The other important area of manipulation of human cells is human enhancement. That is, using genetically modified human cells to enhance capabilities such as intelligence, strength, physical endurance, and potential exists. For example, genes related to intelligence or muscle development, like myostatin, could theoretically be called and edited at embryonic stage to produce enhanced cognitive or physical traits. There is an argument that human enhancement will interfere the natural course of human development. A modification of embryo will result in changes being transmitted to the progeny, and the whole lineage will be altered. Is this change acceptable to humans? Scientifically, if the embryos are edited, altering traits that will impact future generations, this change may not be natural. Thus, is there a scope for the creation of a new type of humans, one that is engineered rather than natural and evolved? There will be creation of a more homogeneous human population. Natural creation favors diversity as it ensures that a population has a wide range of traits to adapt to changing environments. Human enhancement, particularly genetic modification, could reduce genetic diversity by standardizing certain desirable traits, which could make populations more vulnerable to unforeseen environmental changes. Some enhancements might lead to a propagation of traits that are beneficial in the short term but harmful in the long term from an evolutionary standpoint. For example, cognitive or physical enhancement might increase competitiveness in modern environments, but if they compromise other aspects of fitness, such as immune resilience or social cooperation, they could undermine the species' overall adaptability. The question then arises, how many will be able to afford this methodology? There will be inequality between enhanced and non-enhanced human beings in society ready for the future with this skewness in the development of humankind. As far as the modifications are limited to an individual with his or her consent and with the know-how of what the person is going to go through, that one may provide the course of action, but if such a change or a decision is to alter the entire coming generation, then it raises the issue which need deeper deliberation. The ethics of engineering life encompassing practices like genetic modification, cloning, synthetic biology, and other forms of manipulating life raises complex moral questions that different religions and philosophical traditions approach in unique ways. Judaism, for example, based on Torah and Talmud, teaches that human life is sacred because humans are created in God's image. This means that manipulating human life, that is cloning or creating designer babies, must be viewed with concern as it could compromise the dignity of life or the uniqueness of humans. The Jewish law emphasizes the importance of pikuach nefesh, saving or preserving life. And thus, medical interventions such as genetic engineering for therapeutic purposes are generally permitted, even encouraged. But if yet Judaism does not approve human enhancement or designing babies. The Catholic teaching holds that all human life is sacred because it is created by God. Practices like human cloning or germline interventions are rejected. The Catholic Church opposes reproductive cloning, which undermines the uniqueness of the individual and the natural family structure. Creating embryos solely for research purposes is also morally problematic due to commodification of human cells. Protestant denominations have diverse views on life ethics, but many hold respect for the sanctity of life. For example, liberal Protestant groups may support genetic engineering to alleviate suffering, while conservative Protestants reject practices like cloning, and Protestant ethics permit the use of genetic engineering for therapeutic purposes, such as curing diseases or improving health outcomes. However, concerns arising regarding potential for genetic enhancements that go beyond medical needs, which may be seen as playing God. If humans do not assume the role of God, they are encouraged to use human freedom responsibly. But enhancement projects are clearly prohibited. I skip the Islam part, then I'll move. Yeah, Indian. Yeah. Indian religions such as Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism generally emphasize interconnectedness of life and the sanctity of living beings. All these religions speak about the ahimsa, non-manipulation of human life, and therefore anything that is done to alter the human identity and existence is not permitted. Sikhs, for example, believe life is a gift from God and human beings should respect the natural order of creation. Interfering with the divine creation for personal gain or to alter the natural course of life is seen as ethically problematic. Human birth is a rare opportunity and rarely attained and is not repeated easily. Therefore, genetic engineering that alters human life is not acceptable. Okay. Yeah, I'll just come. So, generally, all these religions speak mostly focused on these 4 points. Many religions view life as sacred, created by a divine being, and altering it for non-therapeutic reasons could be considered disrespectful or unethical. Germline interventions that alter the very identity of individual humans and future generations are generally rejected by most of the religions. I leave the rest for the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a kind of short overview of other religions, but the specific for the discussion, and please you can fix your questions at the end of all presentation concerning the Christianity and particularly the Catholicism about this approach. And the second presentation is about Judaism. And we have a Professor Andrea Genazzani. Is a professor of gynecology and obstetric emeritus, professor at the University of Pisa, and is member of the Jewish community. And so thank you very much for your presentation.
I thank you very much. I am Andrea Genazzani. I would like to start with some words about what is the Jewish religion. And as you see, it is important to those who practice reproductive techniques to learn about different religious perspectives related to reproductive health problems. This is one of the major concerns, actually. Religious groups are active influencing the public with bioethical position, and this is particularly evident with issues concerning procreation, abortion, and infertility therapy. The developments in reproductive medicine raise the new ethical question for different religions that do not always have clear answer. And religious leaders in some countries still exert a powerful influence, mostly in Roma you can see, on the development and practice of reproductive technology. I would like to tell you also that in some countries religious groups may influence will stem from their direct influence on medical protocols. Therefore, it is important for practitioners in the field of reproductive medicine to understand attitude towards reproduction that derive from different religions. And according to the website adherence.com, the numbers of adherents in the big 5 world religions as the follow. Judaism, we are 0.22%, 0.22%. Christianity, 34%, Islam, 24%, Hinduism, 14%, Buddhism, 6%. This is from adherents. And then I would like to tell you how we are raising our laws. First of all, the halakha. This word derived from the Hebrew root that means to go or to walk. And this is a collective body of Jewish religion law, including biblical law, where we have 613 mitzvot. So we are the commandment. They are not only 10, they are 613. And they're not easy to follow for them. And the later Talmudic and rabbinic law as custom and tradition. In principle, the halakhic halakhic literature is composed by two divisions: the written law, which is the Torah, the first 5 books of Scripture, which are the origin of the authority, and the dominant part of the oral law, we are the Mishnah, the Talmud, the post-Talmudic code, and the responsa. So to tell you, the foundation of the written law and the origin of authority is the Torah, the first 5 books of the Scripture, and as stated above, the written law is defined as the origin of the authority. This definition is derived from the ancient tradition and the belief concerning the original revelation on Mount Sinai, when God ascribed the Torah to Moses and to the Jewish people, the recipients. The Torah is not an ordinary text of law. It is an expression of God's revelation, teaching and guidance for men. The attitude of Torah is therefore as a unique and holy divine text, which includes moral values with practical laws. The oral law interprets, expands, and elucidates the written Torah and regulates the new rules and customs. And it is important that this authority is derived from the written Torah. The Mishnah, this is another very important part. This is the early textbooks which compiled systematically by numerous scholars over a few centuries. Its final form was established early in the 3rd century. The Mishnah included early traditional and original interpretation of the written Torah, the ancient regulations that are not written in the Torah, and the post-biblical regulation. The Mishnah consists of 6 major section orders that cover all aspects of human life. Zeraim, regarding agriculture; Mohed, the holidays; Nashim, law regarding women and family life; Nezikin, the civil law; and Kodashim, the law regarding the temple; and Toharot, laws regarding ritual purity. 2 of the orders, Nashim and Toharot, are relevant to Judaic family practices. Then we have the Talmud. For approximately 3 centuries after the final compilation of the Mishnah, the great interpreters studied the 6 orders of the Mishnah and wrote a monumental composition, which is the Talmud. The great interpreters, Amoraim, included within the Talmud commentaries and interpretative studies of the Mishnah, the Midrashim, or investigation, and established regulation and new customs. The Amoraim in Babylon composed the Babylonian Talmud, while the Amoraim in Holy Land composed Jerusalem Talmud. During the period of Jewish sovereignty in Judea, laws were made by Sanhedrin, a body of 71 leaders gathered for this purpose, and by local courts with 23 judges. After the fall of the Second Temple, Halakha became primarily the creation of Rabbinic Judaism. Then we have also, if you go to the time, the post-Talmudic codes. An enormous amount of Talmudic knowledge was essential for accurate ruling. These post-Talmudic codes were compiled with the intention of assisting access to the law, regulation, and custom of the Talmudic halakha. Up to the 16th century, different scholars summarized and reviewed the halakhic conclusion of the Talmud in post-Talmudic codes. Among the scholars, I want to mention Rashi, Luke the Heirs, Luke the Times, Rabbi Moshe ben Nacham and Rabbi Menachem ben Shlomo HaMeri. And the most prominent post-Talmudic codes are Sheliot, Halakot, Maimonides, the Piskei Harosh, and the Shulchan Aruch. Then the various attitudes of rabbinic scholars about the way of halakha should be applied in a changing world is analyzed and discussed with regard to legal codes, because the fundamental is nobody knows the truth of the words. The words will be interpreted by the human at the end of our evolution. This is something which approach us to God as it was written, and to give us the responsibility of the interpretation, the daily responsibility of the interpretation. Each one of us have a direct relationship with God, and this is for the whole life. Then, any commitment, any action, any thought have to be is part of our total image of our life, and then this for each one of us. And through the ages, written opinion has been given by qualified authorities to question about aspects of Jewish law, because the aspects of Jewish law and their interpretation are depending also of our knowledge of what is the word, what God created. You can imagine what it was the science in the century third, in the 15th century, in 20th century, now in the 22nd century. Everything is written with critical words. The interpretation have to rise from our evolution of our knowledge. This is the relationship that God gave us. Responsa is a term usually confined to written replies given to question on all aspects of Jewish law by qualified authority with the time of later geonym to the present day. About 1,000 volumes containing more than 500,000 separate responsa have appeared to be printed. And contemporary rabbinic scholars deal with the new problems that arise with the investigation and treatment of infertility. The response of later rabbinic authority are often short monographs in which every text remotely relevant to the point at issue is quoted and discussed. Different groups are developed among Jews from ancient time and especially in the modern era. We have the Orthodox, the Reform, the Conservative movement are the three major ones today. Orthodoxy is the only movement formally and legally recognized by Israel. Non-Orthodox movements have remained legally a feature of Judaism in the diaspora. What are the take-home messages, dear friends? Genetic engineering are permissible. As it was, Charles, I thank you very much for your presentation. What permissible in Judaism when used for the treatment or prevention of disease. Such genetic manipulation is not considered to be a violation of God's natural law. Judaism rejects the idea of creating a more valuable person through genetic engineering because it does not put a relative value of human life. Judaism does not permit the alteration or manipulation of physical traits and characteristics such as the eye and hair color, facial feature, and the like when such changes provide no useful benefit to mankind. Eugenics is forbidden. And according to Allah, human beings serve as a partner with God in the creation process, but do not have absolute autonomy in utilizing medical intervention. Specific Halachic guidelines delineate when patient autonomy is followed or when a Jew must submit to God's law. I'm sorry, these are other considerations. And I would like to thank all of you. This is our law. And from day to day, we are trying to better understand what is the truth. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Genazzani. It is very important also to know which kind of approach, which kind of a very long tradition of ethical, legal, and cultural aspect in this dialogue between science and our commitments and responsibilities. Please, if you have questions or comments at the end, because now we have the third presentation. And now we move in the Buddhist area, and we have Professor Guido Giordano. He is a professor at the University Tor Vergata. Roma 3 in Rome, and is a member of the Buddhist community.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes. So thank you to you all. Attendance, thanks to the organizers. Especially I would like to thank Father Pegoraro, Father Casalone, and Dr. Ralph Stutzky. Ciao. This is the second time I've participated to this second edition, and I really have enjoyed the first one. I'm enjoying the second edition of this conference, and I think it's very, very important and relevant. And the panel to open to the religion perspective, I think it's important because essentially, ultimately, the reason why we are all here is that we try to cope with some of those problems that human life proposes, that is sufferance, illness, ultimately death, which is, a clear field of interest of religions. So the religion's perspective is indeed important. So I'm Buddhism, like any other big tradition, is very large. So I'm specifically representative of one specific school of Buddhism. So I don't want to be talking forever, even if the principles are shared essentially by all Buddhist schools. I'm a member of the Soka Gakkai International, which is originates as a Japanese tradition of the Mahayana. I would like first to just give a brief overview, as it was done before, on the, let's say, very, very essential principles, and then a little bit into the topics, and hoping to leave time for enough discussion afterwards. So, according to Buddhism, life is a continuum of birth and death, a just function of its true essence. So the never-ending flow of life is regulated, according to Buddhism, by the marvelous law of cause and effect, which expresses the mutual interdependence of all phenomena. And this was perceived as illumination by the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, that probably everybody knows, who lived in the 4th century before Christ. And then was long to this perception, this idea of mutual interdependence and this continuous growth of causes and effects was initially orally transmitted. But then all we have is the written forms that are the sutras that were actually written much later on. So, for example, the Lotus Sutra, which is the fundament of many of the Mahayana schools of Buddhism, but especially also of Soka Gakkai. The Lotus Sutra was written in between the 1st and the 2nd century before Christ. And then in the 13th century, the Japanese monk Nichiren Daishonin proclaimed that the invocation of the marvelous law of cause and effect in Japanese, that was Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that is the translation of the Chinese ideograms of the Japanese pronunciation with the prefix Nam, which means I dedicate myself to the marvelous law of cause and effect. It was the cause to transform any karma or destiny, and the fundamental direction of our heart-mind, attaining illumination, because the ability to perceive the true essence of life exists in any individual life and only needs to emerge in response to that cause. To access to illumination is therefore for anyone at any time, laying the ethical foundation for the supreme respect of any individual life that Buddhism, like all other religions, promote. Within this framework, Buddhism welcomes any effort, as was said before, and this is interesting that religions sort of, from different perspectives but share this common ground, so welcomes any effort to protect and improve individual lives, to cure illness and diseases, including any effort to relieve unnecessary sufferance, so that scientific advancement in biomedical sciences, as in any other field of science, are supported and seen as a great manifestation of compassion. Some of these scientific advancements, especially concerning some new biotechnologies, like we've heard today and yesterday, are today under scrutiny because they raise ethical issues and questions, for example, regarding if and the extent to which the human genome could be modified. In this regard, Buddhism is, while supporting and promoting the integrity of individual lives, focuses on the true and deep intentions, that are the causes, that move science behind its realization. To this aim, is essential to openly fully discuss in a multidisciplinary, multicultural, and multi-religious framework like this one, to find a common shared path along which new biotechnologies are developed as an expression of compassion, solely to protect individual lives, avoiding altering their integrity and that of future generations. So the Buddhist philosopher and peace builder Daisaku Ikeda, who just died exactly 1 year ago, said, "In my opinion, every available means must be used to try to mitigate the suffering. To this end, all possible efforts must be made. But scientific advancement must not be allowed to interfere with the intrinsic rights of life to remain so." So, just to conclude, there are a couple of points that I would like to make based on what I've heard of yesterday. Unfortunately, I was only able to listen to the morning keynote online, and today. There is, I think there's one point that is important, that especially referred to scientists. We are all scientists here. I'm thinking of the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was built by by a project that was in the mind of few people, but there were hundreds, thousands of people who were involved in that, and they were not fully aware of the final project. So, science needs to, our laboratories, our experiments. The point is that I think the reason why this type of meetings are very important is because I think we need to disseminate to the basic level, to the PhD students, the awareness of where they are. Because it's so easy to enter a lab, do some work on some cells, and then you leave or you write your publication. But how much we scientists are fully aware of what are the directions that our research. So it's good to have someone who think about the bigger picture, but we need to promote the dissemination of a discussion about the bigger picture at any level, from students up to whatever. So that's one important thing. And this is an encouragement, because the point of Buddhism as a religion is generally not very prescriptive. So there are not rules in the form of precepts or hard regulation, but it focuses a lot on the topic of cause and effect, where the cause produce effects not only in others but also in us. So the point is the point of responsibility that was pointed out in the presentation of this panel by Father Pegoraro is so important, because we need to be fully responsible for what we do. So pointing out why are we doing this is the key point, at least from the Buddhist perspective. So the point of compassion and knowing that we work toward really for caring for humans or for other purposes. I think it's ultimately what will answer the question of whether something is ethically sustainable or not. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So we have a message, contents, elements to analyze better the meaning of our enterprise, of our work, of the research, science and technological activity, and which kind of goals, which kind of ends, and if we are responsible in all process that in which we are involved. And now we have the Islamic approach by Dr. Mustafa Rashid Kadura. He is a pediatrician here in Rome, and is presenting the Muslim Islamic approach. We try to arrange Italian and English, so I hope that we are able to make a good job about that.
Buongiorno a tutti e grazie all'invito. Good morning all. Thank you for the organization. I am Mustafa Kadura. I speak with Center Islamic Cultural in Italy. Okay. Before, if you please, my relation è soprattutto sull'etica nell'Islam. Non ho parlato nessun accenno storico dell'Islam.
No, ok.
Solo volevo spiegarlo, insomma, questa cosa qua. Ok. non so,
Ma possiamo andare avanti forse noi?
qua.
Se ci chiedi clic possiamo girare noi.
Okay.
Sì, sì.
Ok. Allora, l'etica nell'Islam comincia con la rinuncia ad ogni adorazione al di fuori di Dio. La terza. L'Islam si basa sulla fede in una rivelazione divina fatta all'uomo tramite i profeti. La legge e la morale della rivelazione divina, del resto, come la fede stessa, si riposano sui comandamenti divini. Quanti tipi di adorazione abbiamo? Abbiamo l'adorazione di se stessa o l'egoismo, l'adorazione dei prodotti dei nostri mani, idoli e soprestazioni, la rinuncia a tutto ciò che degrada l'umanità, o l'ateismo. Dopo, l'Islam abolisce qualsiasi ineguaglianza basata su razza, colori di pelle o la lingua. Come dice la Sura 49 del versetto numero 13, o uomini, vi abbiamo creati da un maschio e da una femmina e vi abbiamo costituiti in nazioni e tribù affinché vi conosciate vicendevolmente. In verità il nobile di voi è presso Dio è il più pio. Certo Dio è che Lui che sa la fine al ben informato. Per i rapporti umani, dopo per favore. Rapporti umani e i credenti sono fratelli. Fatti dunque la pace tra voi fratelli e temete il Dio. È possibile che vi faccia misericordia. Non condannatevi gli uni con gli altri e non lasciatevi appellativi ingiuriosi. Da dopo. Nel sociale adorate dunque Dio e non associatevi a cosa alcuna e usate bontà verso i genitori, vostri parenti, gli orfani, i poveri e il vicino imparentato e quello estraneo e il compagno di viaggio, il viandante e lo schiavo. Dopo per favore. Invece l'Islam e la scienza. L'Islam ha attribuito grande importanza alla medicina, rispettando le direttive del profeta Muhammad che ritiene alla cura del corpo umano, perché è una creazione divina e un imperativo per il credente che non si può avvicinare impuro a Dio. Mi ricordo qua il rasi, la vicina e il burino, che era oltre erano medici, anche il burino era anche un farmacoio. La 10. L'Islam attribuisce l'importanza alla medicina, che è legata alla centralità del rapporto tra salute, malattia e crescita spirituale. La malattia è vista come un banco di prova per la solidità spirituale dei fedeli, che hanno la possibilità di cercare aiuto per stare bene. Questa visione ovviamente, come in tutti gli argomenti legati all'influenza dell'Islam nella vita quotidiana. Dopo. L'Islam dà molta importanza alla pazienza associata alla malattia. Qui mi ricordo il profeta Giobbe Ayub, che fu provato nella sua salute, nel suo fisico, nella salute fisica, non solo, anche nei suoi beni e familiari. Nonostante ciò dimostrò paziente e preservante e rifiuta qualsiasi ribellione contro Dio e rivolge a Dio dicendo: il male sì, mi ha colpito, ma tu dei clementi sei il più clemente. Dunque, L'Islam non esigerà l'impossibile, ma cerca il miglioramento costante dei costumi umani in tutti i campi della vita, con tutti i mezzi leciti, sottolineo leciti, ed accessibili agli individui e alla collettività. Dopo. A proposito della terapia, l'Islam a favore della terapia per favorire il miglioramento e la terapia dell'uomo. Di conseguenza, sì alla donazione del sangue per salvare la vita umana, ma sì alla donazione e trapianto degli organi per salvare la vita umana. A proposito dell'intelligenza artificiale, sì all'uso dell'intelligenza artificiale, è lecito se non crea danni all'umanità e se salva la vita umana o migliora la qualità di vita o si usa come terapia per alleviare la sofferenza e il dolore. Infine, finito? Ecco. Grazie, shukran e thanks. Questa è la moschea, la Gran Moschea di Roma. Tutti quanti ci onorate se visitate la Gran Moschea di Roma. Ci fa un piacere e grazie a tutti.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. And so we have this view of these 4 religions and try to see the approach. Okay, we have some differences, but also there are some agreement or consensus about some values, some approaches, some responsibilities concerning human life, and in which way medicine or science could be involved and could help to save human life. So please, now we have questions, and please, Roberto, to specify. We have also online.
No, but I'm asking.
Okay. No, Roberto, and specify to whom.
To everybody.
To everybody.
So I don't make any particular preference among the religions in question.
Yes.
So if a lion were to speak, we would not understand what it says. It's an important point because it speaks to the problem of the incommensurability of language games. If religions were to speak, we wouldn't understand what they have to say unless the theological argument each one of them makes becomes an ethical argument. That is, until and unless the theological perspective is, for lack of a better word, anthropologically mediated. Otherwise, religions are bound to remain in a kind of separate limbo, making sense to what Tris Engelhardt calls the community of friends, but in fact referring to one another, and more specifically to the secular society, as the reality of strangers. So I guess I very much thank the panel for the presentations, and I think it was also very important for us to have the religious perspectives. But the methodological question remains for me, and that is, religions are important for whom? And in order to answer the question for whom, we have, again, to be able to articulate these theological arguments that make sense within the particular community of discourse to which they refer, outside that community. Otherwise, religious perspectives are interesting for religions, but not for anybody else.
Okay, it is a deep and fundamental question. So in which way to have a meaning inside and outside the community in this society. Please, who would like to start? Charles? Okay.
Thank you for the question. And I tend to think humanity precedes even religions. Beyond religions, human beings belong to a species called Homo sapiens. In that sense, I think they share certain common qualities. The specific positions as teachings of different religions are followed by different religious followers. At the end of the day, like Pope Leo XIII says, human beings precede the state. I tend to think even human beings precede everything else. In that sense, as human beings, we have commonalities. And those aspects, if you think, I fall back to species argument. Human beings created in image and likeness of God have commonalities beyond the religions. If we base philosophy and theology on that, I think we will be able to understand, and then definitely there is certain amount of anthropological foundations on this. If we have to go beyond that and recognize the values in other organisms, like Swiss bioethics began to view the creator, the dignity of other lives as well. And within these religions, I think we need to also narrow down to the larger understanding of human beings as human beings, humanity.
Please, yes.
Yes, I would like to follow exactly in your line. It is also clear that human beings were created in the believer, were created by God, but the access of the revelation went later on, is the same as the conscience. The conscience exists since the beginning, but the perception of the conscience reach the human body at a certain moment in its own development. But we have to, in that line, the previous lecture that we had, fantastic, have also to be reanalyzed in the point of view, what is human conscience? Human conscience is not the total perception of a human being, but a human conscience exists in many other moments of our development. Since few cells, they have their own conscience of the environment surrounding. If you take one cell from an 8 cells embryo, you take out one, she perceived the loneliness, and then she creates a full other body. If you leave her when she follow in its destiny, and she create part of a body. This also indicates that the consciousness is linked to the perception of the individual. An individual should be a self, an individual in its own environment. But the revelation that God gave us through Moses was happened at a certain moment of the development of humans. It was given to a tribe, but it was offered to the world. This is our believing that we have. Only the difference in some aspects is such we have still the responsibility that God gave to Moses, that he was a man. He was a person who have to interpret the law and to bring out the law. It was, and as a single person, he was no more than any other. He disappeared at the end. It was no more than any other. Any individual have an individual relationship with its own religion, believing, traditions, to achieve the goals that we are in the life, which is the propagation of science and also of the beneficial aspects of man in the life. The beneficial not only for man, but also for nature. This is something who put us at the present moment in very difficult situation to understand how we are going far from what was written.
Do you have a comment?
Yep. Thank you very much for the question. I think you are touching a very important point because religions, especially the big religions, the the consolidated religions we're talking about, have shaped our societies, our ways of thought, and for a long time, for thousands of years, have actually taken for granted their role in driving, morality, science, whatever aspect of life. And in the last century, they started to lose ground, all of them, because society has changed, materialism in various forms has taken ground, and essentially, truly, the words that religions use often sounds like, outdated at best. Sometimes even like bigotry in a way. There is a perception of religious views around topics like hard topics like these ones as something that you listen, then that's it. For my experience, I have to say, I wasn't born in a Buddhist family. I met Buddhist halfway. I didn't have that strong background in the religion I grew up, which was Catholicism. Unfortunately, I'd say, because. But then now I understand that actually religions, all of them, have in fact a lot to say, because the problem that I was pointing out before is a sign of contemporary societies. So for example, the parcelization, the disaggregation, the absence of a view, which is in our lab. I say I'm a scientist. I know what I'm talking about. From the way we do a career on hyper-specialization. We talk a lot about multidisciplinarity, but that's all fake, because you can take your positions in if you are hyper-specialized and you do micro things at the highest level. So the point is that there is a risk that our society, which is now, at least I'm talking about especially Western societies, because that's what I know best, that is truly shaped on materialism today, even if it's got reminiscence. And there is what I see is that when there are discussions about bioethical issues, I understand what you mean, because there is the risk to have face-to-face on something that is religion taken, which sounds like old-fashioned thing that you don't want to think, and the progressive materialistic way, and this clash is not good, because there are two views that have a lot to give as a benefit to humans, but here we are, in a place, and we are invited by. There is an evidence that religions can be open, and the point is that religions offer that bigger picture. Nichiren Daishonin, the Japanese monk I was recalling, in one of these most famous letters to one disciple, says, unless you understand the meaning of life and death, all the rest is useless. So, but that's that's a critical point. So I think yes, I agree that religions need to understand modernity and try to find the way to interact with modern society. I think that the modern society, has to listen to what religions have to say, because there's a lot that can be really done in that.
Thank you.
Io credo che le tre religioni monoteisti, l'ebraismo e il cristianesimo, l'Islam, appartengono allo stesso Dio. Di conseguenza è quello che hanno detto prima di me, io mi trovo d'accordo al 100% di quello che hanno detto.
Maybe you're already understood, but he believes that the monotheistic traditions, Islam, Jewish, Hebraism, and Christianity are referring to the same God. So I fundamentally agree with what has been said already.
Okay. Questions, please.
Hi, thanks everyone for the talk. So there's something I cannot reconcile in my mind about the following aspect. I have the impression that this, let's say, human dignity pathway that we are talking about as an overarching ethical guideline, I'm not sure if this guideline can takes into account everything that's going on, because like whenever we talk about life, and for example yesterday in a few of the flash talks we mentioned like synthetic life, and my fear is that like whenever we talk about synthetic life, it's not everything human, in the sense that I have a feeling that everything we said this morning is very anthropocentric. And from my perspective, I mean, I'm a PhD student in theoretical biophysics, and my feeling about our field, and also if you talk about synthetic biologists and nanotechnologies, and the groundbreaking point in the field won't be a homunculus or a small human being. It will just be a cell. Like the scientific revolution will be the point where synthetic life will be able to build a cell from scratch or whatever, like we're still not there. So I'm not sure if, this human dignity guideline, how can they apply to something that is not human at all? In the sense the tree of life is so full of diversity and complexity, human is just one point in the, I can get totally the, let's say, religious aspect, religious view, because of course humans have a, let's say, prioritized position in the creation. So I don't know, there's a way like you can help me to reconcile this point, if at all. Thanks.
I thank you. I thank you. Sorry. Can I ask the microphone? Yes. I thank you very much for the question. I was impressed by your study and your colleagues also. And but you know, we are sometimes speaking of the 6th day of the creation. You are speaking of other days. Everything is coming from God. You know, in the first 5 letters of the Bible, it's written something that probably other thousands of years will be needed to better understand what it was. But your science is written inside. The life is also the life of kelons. It's the life of viruses. It's the life of others. It's before to achieve a cells, they were needed many millions years. You have the possibility to open our eyes on a part which was completely dark for us. I thank you very much. This is not anthropocentric. This is God-centric. You are illuminating what is the creation. I was totally fascinated yesterday by this lesson. But at the same time, I think that my relation with God is individual. And I have to follow the law. And I have to try to give the better interpretation. Because sometimes we are also wrong in interpreting what it was written, because we have not clear understanding. But I thank you very much for what you are doing.
Thank you for the question. If I have understood it correctly, I'd like to make distinction between what is human and who is a human being. And human dignity, we relate to the human beings as an entire entity. And I understand that human dignity is inseparable from the human condition. The other aspect, what is human, synthetic biology, every cell is fascinating, but I am not going to speak about the inviolable aspect of the human dignity to each cell. The cell is human, it's fascinating, it has potential for creative things, but should I protect every cell as I want to protect the human being as the fully formed organism? I hope I answered you.
You could also reply.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is very obviously interesting. I mean, and that's one of the fields where, again, I think religions struggle, but simply because the teachings of all these religions are so old, that all these issues are so new, that we have to, try to understand how that vision that is written in the text, in the philosophy, and in the beliefs applies to these new challenges. And what you're saying is definitely interesting. I could say one thing for the Buddhist perspective. As we said, everything is interconnected. There's actually no fundamental difference when we say life, including humans, of course. So it's just life, including non-living things. That's but there's, even Shakespeare said we are made of the same thing as stars. So we know that. I think the point is obviously the human essence is a subject of specific interest of human beings. So obviously religions, which are shaped by humans, are focused on that. There's nothing wrong. But the point of I think creating a new cell or whatever other new discovery, I think goes back to the issues of responsibility. Fortunately, I wasn't here for your presentation yesterday, so I've missed that. And but I don't know if you've seen Oppenheimer, the film. Well, that was amazing. I think that was really the moment when this tells something profound about science as an expression of human desire to know, to test, to see. So that was amazing because you had this journey of human knowledge that knows that in that thing that you don't see there is that energy, and the message of the film is that explosion was simply the desire to see that, even if there was some sort of awareness that once that's done, it's there, and then you have to cope with a new, completely different world that possibly no one would have really liked to cope with. We would not like to be in a world with atomic bombs, but we are in this world. And the reason is that, that's the message of the film. I don't know whether it's that, but it's interesting for me as a scientist. The message of the film that it was just the desire to see something that scientists had envisaged, had written down. They wanted to see that, and so that's what I'm saying. So what I think about what is the why. So what's in that discovery, fully, thoroughly, and even listen again to religions, even if they speak a different language. But even that you don't need to share the language. Just try to understand what's in there.
Thank you. There is another question there.
Yes, thank you for the insightful presentations. I'd like to link up with the previous question about human dignity. Nowadays, this is a problematic concept for a lot of reasons. And as Schopenhauer stated, once that expression, as uttered by Kant, afterward became the shibboleth of all the perplexed and empty-headed moralists. It is equivocal, indeed, and people of different perspectives use it to support their often opposing arguments. We believe, however, as a representative of a Christian tradition, that invoking this concept in the ethical domain can be profoundly meaningful and impactful. because on one hand it provides grounding in an unconditional principle, and on the other it fosters a dialogue on bioethical issues with a depth warranted by their anthropological significance. So, my question, how can we speak today of how can we reframe the concept of human dignity in order to give to it more dignity? Forgive the wordplay.
Yeah, you might be probably familiar with the children's and speech principles of autonomy, beneficent, non-beneficent, justice, etc. But when we really analyze those principles, there are areas when we find these principles are not sufficient to deal with all the bioethical questions. Now, actually, where these principles are located, it's located are dealing with the human being who has the inseparable value called dignity. That's why we need to bring down to that level that human beings have a value which we call dignity, and that becomes a foundational principles. This can be also further combined with the integrity and vulnerability, etc. That is why European Union bioethics speak more on the human dignity. Now, like Schopenhauer says, it is only in and through a human body that a human life is possible. Now, this human body becomes a foundational for us to deal with anything, whether genetic engineering or genetics or interaction, society, religion, whatever may be. Now, this human body in and through which we exist has that value. That's why I find, irrespective of the non-consensus with regard to the content and the definition of human dignity, it is simply there. A simple fact that anything has a value. Similarly, human beings have a value which is priceless value, which cannot be bought and sold, and that value is intrinsic. And therefore, I find that has to be the foundational principle for all the bioethical questions that we deal.
Thank you. Comments? Genazzani?
I have, first of all, I have not the culture, I have not the possibility to answer your question, but I would like to put some points of attention, of caution to the assembly that we are, which is a fantastic opportunity. The question is the human dignity to be always protected, even though when the quality of life make the humanity inaccessible for the human who perceive that one. It's a general right which have to be saved in any case, or it can have an individual interpretation to tell us if this dignity still exists in my quality of life. I have no answer because I am a physician, and then I have seen how the capacity of suffering is completely cancelled, the aspect of to be a human part of the human communion, and leave you in a single individual and its pain. I'm sorry, but I would like you to reflect also on this one. Thank you very much for raising the question.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So, human dignity, obviously, needs to be grounded in some sort of fundamental principle that justifies this. So, for example, Buddhism sees actually any phenomenon, including human life, as made of phenomenological aspect, the body, but also a spiritual aspect, and also the entity of the two things. So there's nothing that there's no There's no, you can tell they are two, but they are actually also the same. So the point is that based on that, and on the fact that this is interesting with respect to the keynote this morning, we talked about potential. So the idea that Buddhism promotes, that every single life has the potential to blossom as a Buddha. So the Buddha is something that is intrinsic. The illumination is intrinsic, exists. Then that does not necessarily manifest, but it exists potentially. That justifies the why then life has a dignity. Then, of course, how you care for this dignity is a critical point. But I think that it's important to shape, to understand that you need to confer a principle to that dignity, because without the principle, it's difficult to have a clear way of what you can do with that dignity and what you cannot do with that dignity. That's, I think, also what Professor Genazzani was saying.
So many thanks. We have to conclude also this interesting section. I think it's a very interesting and positive experience of a dialogue among the religions and dialogue between religions and the scientific community and all people. Okay, there are many open questions, but we think that this approach is a very important approach. It's a kind of a specific, unique experience in a conference or meeting to have this role of religions in this dialogue with the scientific community, philosophical and theological communities. Many thanks. Now we have three, so thanks again, the four speakers.